In just 58 minutes, she dismantled the world's number one. Not in practice, not in a fantasy, but on the biggest hard-court stage outside the Grand Slams, Indian Wells. And no one saw it coming. This is the story of Alex Eala, a 20-year-old Filipina who walked into what many call the fifth Grand Slam, faced the most feared player in women's tennis, and did far more than compete. Point by point, game by game, she took control. She dictated. She dominated. By the end, the crowd wasn't just watching a tennis match anymore. They were witnessing something far rarer, the arrival of a generational force. And every chapter of this story only gets better. But to understand what truly happened in Indian Wells in March 2026, we have to go back to the beginning. Because this didn't start in the scorching desert of California. It started in Manila. A shy but fiercely determined girl from Quezon City, born into an athletic family, raised with discipline, driven by something deeper than fame, a belief that she could change what was possible. Her transformation truly accelerated thousands of miles away inside the training courts of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. In 2026, Alex Eala was ranked world number 143. She wasn't trending, she wasn't headline material, she wasn't part of the future of the game debates, she was just another promising name on a long list, the kind of player analysts nod at respectfully but don't yet take seriously. That was their mistake, because while the world wasn't watching, Ella wasn't waiting, she was building, she was studying every lesson, dissecting every close match, identifying every weakness her opponents exposed, and one by one she eliminated them, under the guidance of coach Joan Bosch and shaped by the philosophy of the Rafa Nadal Academy. She developed a technical foundation built on discipline, heavy topspin, patience, and relentless pressure. She wasn't just improving, she was preparing. Preparing for the moment when the spotlight would finally find her. And when it did, she was ready. That moment arrived in March 2025. The stage was the Miami Open. She entered as a wild card, not even inside the top 130. A golden ticket. An invitation. A polite opportunity to gain experience against the best in the world. No one expected history. Even now, what she accomplished there sounds like fiction. First, she defeated Yulia Putintseva. Then she stunned the reigning U.S. Open champion, Madison Keys. At that point, the tennis world paused, analysts stopped multitasking, commentators lowered their voices. Something unusual was unfolding. Then came the real test. Iga Swiatek, world number 2 at the time, a multiple Grand Slam champion, a ruthless competitor. Eala didn't just compete, she defeated her in straight sets, clean, controlled, composed. In one single WTA 1000 tournament, Alex Eala defeated 3 Grand Slam champions. Let that sink in. She became the first wild card in WTA history to achieve such a run, the first ever, and she wasn't done. She became the first Filipino player to reach the semifinals of a WTA 1000 event. By March 31st, she cracked the WTA Top 100, another historic first for the Philippines. Later that season, in Guadalajara, she lifted her first WTA 125 title. At the U.S. Open, she became the first Filipino player in the Open era to win a Grand Slam main draw singles match. She began 2026 ranked world number 143. She ended it at world number 50, a 93-spot climb in a single season. When asked what 2026 meant to her, she wrote on Instagram, "My dreams have truly come alive. Looking back on this year and reliving these incredible events is such a blessing. This season, and all the emotions that come with it, is a love letter to my family, my friends, my team, everyone who has supported me throughout my journey, and of course, baby Alex." That line tells you everything. This wasn't just a breakout season. It was the realization of a childhood promise. By the time Indian Wells 2026 arrived, she was no longer an unknown wild card. She was seated, respected, studied, and the question hanging over the desert was simple and terrifying. Was Miami a miracle? Or was Alex Eala about to prove it was only the beginning? Do you want to know what truly separates Indian Wells from every other WTA tournament? It's not just the prize money. It's not only the perfectly manicured blue courts or the postcard desert backdrop, it's the atmosphere. Indian Wells doesn't feel like a regular tournament, it feels like a Grand Slam. The air is heavier, the stadiums are fuller, every rally echoes. When the crowd inhales, you feel it. When it explodes, it shakes the desert. The best players in the world don't arrive here casually, they arrive with something to prove, and in 2026, the name sitting at the very top of the draw was no surprise. Aryna Sabalenka, the reigning world number 1. The Belarusian powerhouse. A player whose baseline game has dismantled nearly every major champion of her era. Her serve doesn't just land, it detonates. It sounds like thunder rolling across the valley. She arrived in California fresh off a dominant Australian Open campaign, the reigning finalist in Indian Wells, fully aware that she was the standard in women's tennis. The queen of the hard courts. And then, there was Alexandra Eala, ranked world number 32. For the first time in her career, she entered Indian Wells not as a wild card, not as a curiosity, but as a seeded player. She had earned her place. Just weeks earlier in Dubai, she had defeated world number 8 Jasmine Paolini, powering her way to the quarterfinals. She carried herself differently now, confident, energized, hungry. Not wide-eyed. Not overwhelmed. Hungry. But here's the brutal truth about Indian Wells. The draw does not care about your story. It does not care about your momentum. It does not care about your confidence. It only cares about numbers. And when the draw was released, a potential fourth-round collision appeared on the screen: Sabalenka versus Eala, the world number 1 versus the rising Filipina. The experts smirked. They treated it like a stepping stone, like a routine checkpoint on Sabalenka's march to another final. After all, this was Indian Wells, this was the dessert, this was the queen's territory, and Eala, she was still supposed to be learning. No one imagined what was about to happen next, and just like that the desert went silent, not because Sabalenka had hit another thunderous ace, not because the world number 1 had imposed her will, but because Alexandra Eala refused to bend. Every rally became a statement, every return carried belief, every step along that baseline whispered something dangerous. She belongs here. Sabalenka tried to raise the volume: bigger serves, heavier forehands, louder roars. But Eala didn't flinch. She absorbed the pace, redirected it, turned defense into offense with surgical precision. The crowd at Indian Wells Tennis Garden began to feel it. That shift. That energy. That moment when a favorite realizes this isn't routine anymore. Sabalenka, the reigning Australian Open force. Sabalenka, the world number 1. Sabalenka, the woman who had overpowered a generation. And across the net. A 20-year-old from the Philippines playing with the calm of a veteran and the hunger of someone rewriting history in real time. Game by game, the pressure flipped. Sabalenka's frustration grew louder, Eala's composure grew stronger. When the final rally came, it wasn't chaos. It was clarity. A clean return. A deep backhand. One last fearless strike into open court. Silence. Then eruption. Alexandra Eala had done the unthinkable. She didn't just defeat the world number 1, she dismantled the narrative. The analysts, who called her a dangerous floater, they were right. There was a ceiling, and on that Californian afternoon, she shattered it. This wasn't luck, this wasn't a hot streak, this wasn't fantasy, this was evolution. From wild card dreamer in Miami to history maker at the US Open to giant slayer in the desert. And as she walked off that court, head high, eyes steady, you could feel it. 2026 was the arrival. 2026, that might be the takeover. The question is no longer can she repeat it, the question now is far more unsettling for the rest of the tour. Who's stopping her next before Sabalenka could reset? It was already too late. Eala wasn't just defending, she was absorbing the power, rerouting it, and redirecting thunder into precision. Every heavy forehand that came at her was sent back sharper. Every serve was neutralized. Every opening was punished. Her aggressive court positioning, lightning footwork, and relentless rally tolerance created the perfect balance between patience and attack. She could extend exchanges when needed, and end them in a blink when the chance appeared, and on this specific afternoon in the California desert, that balance was flawless. The first set, it was over before the crowd could even settle. 6-2 Alexandra Eala. A murmur rolled through the stands of Indian Wells Tennis Garden. It started high in the upper tiers, a low confused hum, then it spread downward like a wave crashing toward the court, because fans know, they know when they're witnessing something ordinary. And they definitely know when they're witnessing something historic. The second set began, and there was no hesitation. Eala didn't retreat. She didn't protect the lead. She didn't wait for errors. She imposed. Every return was a declaration. Every passing shot is a proclamation. Every hold of serve is a tightening grip on destiny. Across the net stood Aryna Sabalenka, the reigning powerhouse, the thunderserve champion, the undisputed world number 1. But this didn't look like a mismatch, this looked like a shift. The Filipino flags began to rise. Thousands of Filipino supporters stood to their feet with the same passionate energy that had followed Eala from Manila to Dubai, turning distant arenas into home courts. The clock ticked. 58 minutes, 62 minutes. Barely over an hour. And before the match even felt like it had truly begun. It was over. Final strike. Clean. Clinical. Silence. For half a second. Then eruption. Not polite applause. Not a respectful clap for a good effort. A thunderous roar. A full-scale explosion from thousands who had just watched a 20-year-old Filipino walk onto one of the biggest hard courts in the world and dismantle the world number one as if she had done it 100 times before. No nerves. No fear. No disbelief in her game. Only belief in herself. Eala lifted her arms. For a brief moment, her composure cracked. Not from pressure, not from relief, but from overwhelming, almost surreal joy. She looked up toward the desert sky. Not in desperation. Not in shock. But in pure, disbelieving happiness. Because in just over an hour, she hadn't just won a match. She had announced a new era. And the rest of the tour? They were officially on notice. It didn't take hours. It didn't even take 30 minutes. Social media exploded within minutes of match point. Not just in the Philippines, where the reaction was instant, volcanic, and unstoppable, but across the entire tennis world, from Manila to Melbourne, from Dubai to California. Fans who had tracked Alex Eala's rise since her wild card run in Miami in 2026 felt something close to validation. They had seen the signs. Now the world had two clips of the match, flooded timelines, slow motion returns, clean winners. Sabalenka was frozen mid-rally. The final point from 3 different angles. Former champions reposted it. Analysts quoted it. Commentators scrambled to rewrite pre-written narratives. Before the post-match press conference even began, Alex Eala was trending in over a dozen countries. Filipino sportswriters, who had stayed up through the night to watch, were hammering away at their keyboards, racing against time to capture history. Within the first hour, one word dominated hundreds of headlines: historic. But beneath the celebration, beneath the flags, the cheers, the national pride, something deeper was happening. This wasn't just an upset. This was a shift. Because before that afternoon, the numbers said something very different. Aryna Sabalenka had lost only a handful of matches in the previous year. She had beaten every major rival. Her serve regularly crossed 180 km per hour. Her forehand generated some of the highest power metrics on tour, and she was facing a player making her debut at Indian Wells Tennis Garden, a player outside the top 30, a player who had started the previous season ranked 143. In the world. On paper, it was supposed to be routine. Instead, it was surgical. In barely over an hour, Eala didn't just compete. She controlled. She dictated. She dismantled it. This kind of